For almost a decade now, my favorite show has been Bojack Horseman. It's a show I'm deeply emotionally connected to. It's the single story I've spent the most time talking and thinking about. And I've built up an online persona over about 4 years where it is probably the first thing that comes to mind for people who know me. So I thought in launching the YouTube channel, one of the first things I wanted to do was a more extensive piece on Bojack Horseman as a character. Character analysis is the main thing that I like to talk about, and I thought I'd do justice to the character that I'm probably the best equipped to talk about in long form, and here we are. This will be the Bojack Horseman character analysis, part 1. These analyses will get better as they go along, because the show has a lot more to talk about, gets more complex, emotionally compelling as we go on, and I've been writing this analysis over a long course of time, and I think that my writing improved throughout it. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Bojack Horseman is predominantly a character study of its main character as it seeks resolution in life's conflicts at the intersection of morality and the pursuit of meaning. What makes a person good or bad? Can such a broad statement be made to define a complex subject such as a human being? Is this definition set in stone, or is change possible? What does this process demand? The show functions based in distinct seasons that each examine an avenue on the path to meaning, with the question of change lingering precariously over our heads as our scope broadens, with a major subject introduced in each subsequent season, all culminating in the 6th and final season where we get our answers. Season 1 focuses on external validation and acceptance. Season 2 on romantic love as a path to meaning. Season 3 on ambition and success as a path to meaning. Season 4 on cyclical familial trauma as a barrier to meaning. And Season 5 on drugs, obscured perception of reality, numbing the self to preclude the need for meaning. Season 1, to be blunt, is worse than the others. It comes before the writers really found their direction and focuses predominantly on a man seeking bromance as a key to acceptance of his faults in a toxic way. The show wanted to present itself as more palatable to Netflix, like a Family Guy or a typical sitcom. But as the show gets much better after Season 1, as I just mentioned, so too will my analysis. At first, I was just going to give Season 1 a few sentences, but I decided I'd at least go over some key points. Bojack thinks Diane, a girl he meets in the first episode, and the relationship of which will span the course of the show. And he thinks that she's just like he is, and falls in love with her. If only she can accept him, flaws and all, he can accept himself. This would, of course, not work, and external validation can never bring inner peace, nor should somebody accept you for all of you when parts of you are violent and disgusting, like Bojack. This is a common flaw in stories, a shitty trope, and thank God Bojack avoided this. But I've actually grown to appreciate Season 1 as a lot more than I used to. The arc of the season is such a great introduction to Bojack's constant bait and switch as it deconstructs tropes of sitcoms and modern American culture. Bojack is immediately characterized as a self-hating, miserable celebrity has-been who spends his days watching reruns of his old show, fantasizing about if real life could be so easy and simple as it was on Horseman Around, his old 90s sitcom, which is effectively a Full House parallel. Throughout the show, the character personas he plays manifest into his real life, and here we see the all-too-common positioning of striving for a girl to accept you, warts and all, as a narrow-minded tunnel to fulfillment where you don't have to deal with the copious issues closing in on the same tunnel. It's a strange breed of escapism mixed with lust for external validation commonly found in typical American sitcoms because, well, it's easy. But Bojack will not be that kind of show. Even if Diane does like him, she's engaged to his rival/optimistic self-reflection/primary foil character, Mr. Peanut Butter. We watch what is mostly a typical Western TV sitcom introductory season, but the undercurrents of something different consistently spring up right when you're about to get comfortable. The season hits full steam in its major moments of crushing Bojack's hopes for an easy way out, for external validation and acceptance, so he doesn't have to change to be better. Bojack abandoned his best friend about 20 years ago, the creator of his show that made him famous, Herb Kazaz. The first heartbreaking moment in the show is his outright refusal to forgive Bojack, who Bojack only calls him up in the first place because Herb is dying of cancer, sort of metaphor for the decay that Bojack wreaks on people around him. It's also the first of the show's consistently excellent capture of the validity of both our ability to change as people, but also the validity of those we've hurt's pain. Downer Ending features a psychedelic escapade through Bojack's psyche, meandering through his traumas, failures, and dreams. It culminates with Bojack barging in on a Diane he feels understands him better than anyone, but has already rejected full acceptance of or romantic interest in him, and asks her if it's too late for him. Taking this question as the show's central question, or viewing everything else I'm about to talk about as rooted within, would be a perfectly reasonable view. The same question will be answered in proper form by the only person who could ever possibly answer it in the last episode. But for now, Diane has rejected Bojack after writing a book about him and understanding him better than anyone probably ever has or ever will. This serves to more or less snuff out the will they or won't they sitcom trope with regards to our main male and main female characters. Now that we've made it clear this won't be so superficial, we have a compelling story to go through. And we've also accomplished the establishment of the best dynamic in the show, Bojack and Diane, as not a will they or won't they stereotype of romance, but two deeply broken individuals who have parallel arcs and grow a deep sense of understanding for each other, using each other as a basis for self-reflection. This is not a Diane character analysis, so I won't go into her arc too much, but she's an astounding character in her own right, better written than nearly every lead of every acclaimed TV show I've seen, at least in my opinion. From then on, each season covers a key theme and ends in the climax of its 11th episode, which subverts it. Season 2 is focused on a much more mature form of romantic love as a means of finding meaning. Bojack is finally dating someone his own age. The show presents him as having a bit of a Leonardo DiCaprio syndrome. This is shown through the relationship with Wanda, and later the adventure in New Mexico. Wanda and Bojack relate well as they both find themselves removed from the world, broken. Wanda is a great example to use as a tool towards Bojack's psychology, as her conflict is from being in a coma for decades, not something inherent to her as a person. And she very quickly finds her footing and starts moving forward, while Bojack cannot. The divide between them widens on this basis, and as Bojack starts to idealize her security and progress, he inadvertently confesses his love to her. He can't deal with these feelings. He's absolutely terrified to be seen, to be vulnerable with her, to be truly seen. This is a relationship that started with what is now a favorite meme of mine, and Bojack finishing their one-night stand, stating while choking incredulously over his own words, "I want to do things with you, fully clothed things, in daylight hours," as if that's some sort of novel, insane concept. Hashtag Bojack the feminist. I'd be quick to call this out as deeply ingrained misogyny, but to be honest, Bojack would treat a man exactly the same way, and sex really has nothing to do with it, beyond any other form of immediate pleasure or using people. He's just horrible at opening up to genuine connections, especially sober ones. Wanda sums this up perfectly in a joke, the joke about the mulch. A gardener whose special talent is knowing how many bags of mulch to get accidentally gets one extra. He panics over this and feels invalidated, but instead of clinging to the issue, he just throws it over the highway bridge. Bojack makes nothing of this and doesn't see any humor or meaning in it. Ironically, this is the crux of his character. A bag he feels invalidates him, but he can't just throw it away. Of course, decades of familial trauma, self-imposed guilt, substance abuse, and irreversible self-inflicted relationship damage is a lot harder to discard than a bag of mulch, but I digress. Later on, Wanda returns to the joke, unbeknownst to Bojack, detailing a boyfriend freaking out that his girlfriend sent old love letters to her high school ex as a joke. He stamps away, mad, can't believe that his girlfriend's done this, gets into the car and sees a shadowy figure in the back. In a cold sweat, assuming it's the ex-boyfriend, as Bojack does, he looks back and finds the bag of mulch. Now, this Bojack finds funny. It all came together, but he doesn't see the underlying meaning at all. This is a metaphor for him and Wanda, or, better yet, him and all of his relationships. The baggage someone else would discard always ends up in the back of his car, as he creates the worst situation possible in his mind and acts accordingly. The joke stops here, but in your experience, would you say that insecurity and lack of trust would end up ruining a relationship, such as one in the joke? I'd say so. And this ends true for Bojack and Wanda as well. She departs with one of the series' most iconic quotes, almost becoming internet cliche. I guess when you're in love, all the red flags just look like flags. And it's sad because she's right. As she leaves, neither of them truly wanting to part, she cries herself to sleep as Bojack drinks himself into unconsciousness. Ah, typical Bojack. So, Wanda confirms what I was previously saying. Bojack wants her as an idealization and escape rather than someone to truly see him and push him towards progress. So much for that. So, with his escape now gone, what does Bojack do? Well, he looks for another one. He goes to New Mexico to buy a boat, ironically named Escape from LA. But really, he wants to chase after Charlotte, his big what-if girl he's been idealizing despite knowing literally nothing about who she is anymore. She's the girl that he had a drug-induced delusion about a happy life with in Downer Ending in the end of the last season. To his surprise, the middle-aged girl he idealized has a family. Weird. Nonetheless, he tries to integrate himself into a continual pursuit of her, because who cares if he breaks up a family if he can chase the girl? This leads to a growing relationship with the daughter, who eventually grows affection for him, and after he takes her to prom, where he gives teenagers alcohol, landing them in the hospital, which we just gloss over, Penny tries to kiss him. Penny being the daughter. Bojack, in an astoundingly competent way for him, tells her she's too young and doesn't understand what she's doing. I couldn't believe it the first time I watched this. That's not Bojack at all. But he goes to talk to Charlotte, and he goes to kiss her. Great. She realizes what's happening and says he needs to leave. Of course, because she has a family. His lack of self-acceptance led to his inability to open up to her and show his feelings when he was young, and his lack of empathy leads to his reckless pursuit of her still. Back on his boat, he's once again approached by Penny, and this time, yeah, Bojack is still Bojack. The show is extremely conservative with its use of the word fuck for emphasis purposes, relegating it to a once per season basis. But when Penny walks in on Bojack, it's near statutory rape, which he absolutely was going to go through with, by the way. Charlotte says, "If I ever see you again, I will fucking kill you." Well, that's basically season 2. What did it all mean? Well, Bojack pursues 2 different women he idealizes based on his perception of them rather than who they are, is emasculated by their normal life progress, and his insecurity ruins both relationships. His contradictory fear of being seen, paired with his need to be accepted, leads to his preying on a teenager, someone who doesn't have the adjustment and self-awareness he's afraid of, because of course she doesn't. She's a teenager, but he's a 50-year-old man. I think this is a really interesting turning point in the show, especially in a more meta level as the show's awareness and relationship with its audience. I've talked to a vast amount of people who got to this point and felt they could no longer root for Bojack. He's now past the point of no return. This is a massive credit to the show's tone, as especially in animation, being able to create this sense of disgust is no easy feat, especially with popular shows like Rick and Morty or South Park being as huge as they are. And you may say, yeah, but aren't those comedies? But isn't Bojack? Or doesn't it at least present itself as such, especially up to this point? It's totally impressive to me in how directly and undeniably it nails the contrast in its deconstruction. But I digress again. This may be the point of no return for many, but it isn't. The show wants your hesitation. Any moral person would feel it. But the show decidedly believes, as do I, that Bojack is not at the point of no return. He is not a bad person, because that doesn't exist, and will spend the rest of its runtime detailing why. I'm not filling this in with later context either. This is established immediately after. Bojack shows another defining element of his character, maybe his best. His underlying awareness of his shittiness, leading to an undying desire to change. The very episode after the debacle in New Mexico, he reveals himself further to us in his relationship with Todd. Back in season 1, he discouraged Todd's rock opera out of bitterness, but helps him along when he finds actual meaningful connection in their shared creativity. But after realizing Todd may leave him if he's successful, his terror of loneliness kicks in, and he sabotages Todd. In this episode 12, season 2, right after Escape from LA, he chases Todd after Todd's disillusioned with his relationship with Bojack, and actually opens up to Todd. He shows him the first glimpse of humanity in the show. Despite pretending not to, Bojack actually does remember little moments with Todd, with other people, and he loves having him around. He's just too emotionally crippled to show it most of the time. It's a beautiful moment, but the need to be consistently good stays out of reach for him. Returning home, he channels mental agony into physical need for progress, whereas the internet says he's a guy channeling emotions into exercise because men can't process pain, and he takes up running. Running up a hill, he collapses exhausted as a monkey comes by and tells him one of the show's defining ideas. It gets easier. The hard part is you have to do it every day, but it does get easier. Beautiful. I've seen the show 9 on my 10th watch now, and my first watch with this had me sitting there staring at the wall for a long time. Granted, it probably related better to me at that point in my life, and I didn't churn through cathartic media like it was my job back then, but it's a truly beautiful moment. In this season, we have taken 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but given ourselves a lot of scope and intrigue into this corrupt, confusing, complex character, and we'll continue to analyze him in the next video, where we're on to season 3.